The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
At that time, John summoned two of his disciples and sent them to the Lord to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?" When the men came to the Lord, they said, "John the Baptist has sent us to you to ask, 'Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?'" At that time, Jesus cured many of their diseases, sufferings, and evil spirits. He also granted sight to many who were blind. And Jesus said to them in reply, "Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind regain their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news proclaimed to them. And blessed is the one who takes no offense at me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This is Luke's repeat of the Gospel that we heard last Sunday. And the line that struck me as I was preparing today was, "Blessed is the one who takes no offense at me." And, a lot of people are making the news these days because of the offense that they are taking at our Holy Father. And yet, you look at his teaching, and particularly how he embodies his teaching in works, and what you see is he is reaching out and placing mercy and compassion as the lead quality of the disciples of Jesus. It's interesting that John's, personally, I think when he sent the two disciples, his question was a sincere one. He knew he was preparing, but he was not sure exactly who would embody what he was preparing for. And so he sends his disciples to ask a question, point blank. "Are you the one? Yes or no?" And of course, Jesus never answers yes or no questions. He always says, "Well, what do you see? Look into your powers of perception, your powers of observation. Look into your own hearts. Is there something in me that you could take offense at?" Well, if your concept of God is bound up in exterior performance and legalism, there's a lot to take offense at. And if your concept of God is simply open-ended love and compassion, the kind of love and compassion that draws out the best in the other, the kind of love and compassion that allows yourself to be molded by your encounter with the other with a small o, and then the other with a capital O, that's the one who will not take offense at Jesus. That's the one who will be a faithful follower. It's not just a membership in a club, but rather it is a continuing journey of learning and rediscovering who and what Jesus is. Which brings me to one last point about John of the Cross. He lived in days that were marked, I think, by a general feeling of victory, of power, of euphoria over finally getting rid of the Muslim and Arab dominance of Spain. And he was part of the anti-Semitic as well as anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic sentiment of the time. And yet I cannot help but think he would have had a completely different concept of Islam had he had the opportunity to encounter the followers of Rumi, the Sufi Muslims, and would have discovered that within what seems to be this rigid and hard concept of God, that there is room for love, that there is room for the kind of contemplative spirit that was very much at the center of his life. I kind of fantasize Rumi and John of the Cross having a great time in heaven right now. And maybe we need to ask both of them to intercede for our world today, to bring people together in the kind of love and compassion that leads to understanding.